You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
وتكلمين هناك لشوارزنيجر.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, 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 golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
So, Kevin, it's the first day of summer. And I look at my phone this morning, and it's 35 Celsius with the Humidex.
Yes.
So it decided to come in with a bang, and I'm done. It's my God-given right as a Canadian to complain about the weather, whether hot or cold. So we're done. We're out.
It's the same here. When I woke up this morning, 9:30, it looked like 32 degrees. It's already sunny. Like, close everything. Keep the cool air inside, and don't you dare open that door.
All right, fair enough. We got a special guest today with us, joining us for the show from CJBQ in Belleville. It is David Foote, our friend. David, how you doing?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on here this morning. I'm excited to talk a little footy with you guys.
All right, yeah, David's a big footy fan. I've been on his was on his show in Peterborough a few times. David, so we're glad to have you. We're going to talk to you with it a bit. But before we get going today, I did want to have a brief mention to our Canadian listeners that might be tuning in, all excited about the Canadian women's roster. We will have that. Lots of full coverage on that. That will be on Two Solitudes, the podcast version. That'll be recorded a little later today or early tomorrow and out tomorrow. So you can look forward to that. The lineups were released 4 minutes ago, although they made a little mistake, guys, this morning. The lineup was actually on the Canadian page 3 hours before the embargo was supposed to end. It's nothing like breaking your own embargo.
Yeah.
Who's getting kicked out? Somebody's going to lose their credentials now or what?
Yeah, the PR director anyway. So that's funny. There's no surprises on it. But as I said, Two Solitudes, we're working on a good guest. You can kind of guess who we might get for that, our usual suspects there. But yeah, maybe Squizzato. We'll see. Daniel, if you're listening, we're gonna contact you later today. So, pitter patter.
Exactly. But what a weekend, Duane, in the world of soccer. Not just did the Euro was playing on TV, but the Copa. And on top of it, our bread and butter, Major League Soccer, was back this weekend.
Exactly. I took in the LA Galaxy game. Also, lots of local games too. I was at Ligue 1 Ontario all weekend. But anyway, yeah, lots of good stuff going on this weekend. And we're going to touch on it all on the show. But before we do that, I want to talk to David for a little while. I want to talk to David about his general feelings around the Euro, like both your history with it, what you like about it, what you like so far. Let's start with the very beginning, David. Like, what are your memories of the Euro? How long have you watched this tournament? What's your thoughts on the tournament as a whole? It's sort of historical perspective.
Well, for me, I've got immediate family from my dad back is all from England. So it's always kind of been something that we've watched it in my house. And then on my mom's side, my nonna is straight from Italy. So my first real international soccer moments are kind of coming like 98-ish, sort of. I'm 10 or 11. Baggio is missing in a shootout in the World Cup final. For Euro, it's the more recent, I guess, incarnations of that tournament. And I don't really have too many outstanding memories because, as you guys know, England typically doesn't have a great tournament. So
what are you talking about? You weren't there in 66?
No, I don't think I was in. I don't know if my dad was there in 66.
Where were you when they were good? Well, that's the question. England,
maybe I'm right here. Maybe it's this year. I don't know.
Maybe it's this year. What did you think about the England team this year? Let's start there. In the Euro 2016, it's, again, never won a first game in their history in the Euro. Didn't start this year, but they got the result they needed against Wales. What's your thought on the first two games of England?
I think they're exciting to watch. I think they've got a lot of good young players instead of, bringing in the old guard, if you will, every year. And they're giving kids like Rashford and Vardy and guys who were not so well known until now a chance because they've earned that spot through the Premier League. And it's nice to see them capitalizing on those opportunities as well. Vardy's still scoring a crucial goal. And I think I like the way that the team is handling it. They're getting asked kind of some crazy questions in the press conferences where before the Wales match, they were asked, who would you take? Who from the Wales, squad would make the England roster? And both Roy Hodgson and I believe it was Rooney who was up there with him. Rooney just said, well, I'll let you ask Roy. And Roy just said, well, it's kind of a silly question, guys. So I'm going to let you decide that. And we're going to focus on the game. I think the team seems focused. But again, with their history, it's hard to really ever be fully confident in the England side.
You're saying the English press are not really having full perspective. That sounds so unlike them. David, I'm curious. TFC legend Danny Dicchio, of course, has the English heritage. He's an Englishman and a lot of Italian. Dicchio would tell you that. He talks all the time, and when you hear interviews with him about how his nightmare would be an Italy-England final. You mentioned you have a similar background. It sounds to me like you might lean more on the English side, though. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment for sure. It's a little stronger of a connection on that side of things. So it would definitely be England-Italy, England over Italy if I had to pick.
What do you think about the whole, we've talked about it for 2 weeks now since the Russia-England fights outdoors. Is it something that you being you're focused on England and on big tournaments, but not necessarily focused on the international play when they're playing like whatever trophy that's not important? What do you think about the whole hooliganism, the atmosphere surrounding the games in the Euro in 2016, and kind of the weird, edgy feeling this tournament has this year?
It's weird, right? It's almost, I guess, for Canadian fans or hockey, it's almost like fighting in hockey to a point. There's, obviously it's not a good thing to be having people brawling in the streets, but it's like a car crash. Like you kind of want to look at it when it's happening because it's crazy and it gets out the passion and the love that these people around the world have for the game. I thought it was crazy when the Russian fans rushed the English supporters section after the game. I thought that was pretty nuts. As far as the mutual hooliganism going on in the streets, I mean, those are the people from both sides, all teams who are showing up just to do that, right? So I don't like it, but again, it's tough not to watch a video of guys hucking bottles at each other on the internet.
With chairs included. Yeah, no, you're right there. Well, when we talk about chairs, you're talking about, it escalates quickly.
Yeah, I never understood the idea of throwing a chair 60 yards in the air. They're kind of like a large target that's easy to get around. But anyway, maybe I'm not in the mindset. David, let's take it back to the pitch. And we've talked a lot about England here so far, and we're going to talk later on in the show about some of the larger teams. You'll have the opportunity to provide your opinion there. So let's look at the smaller teams. Are there any minnows that have really jumped out and grabbed your attention in this tournament?
I think it's hard to ignore a team like Iceland making its Euro debut and picking up 2 points in 2 matches with a very slim, roster. Sigurdsson up front, I guess, and that's about it. Unless I'm missing somebody, but
there's Finn Bogason, who's been the only other well-known player from the Iceland team. But you're absolutely right, David. Outside those two, you're looking at players that have a good level of quality and class, but that they're not necessarily the same level as the other ones.
And I guess Hungary as well at the top. How about both of those teams in the positions to go through right now are kind of surprising for sure.
No, exactly. One thing that really surprised me, Dave, France, 2 wins, and yesterday they had that 0-0 draw, very boring type of game versus Switzerland because, France knew they were through and they were playing defensive, rotated the squad. What's your thought on the host this year in 2016? Is it going to be 3-for-3? Is it going to be the third time they host that type of tournament? Are they going to win it again?
That's a tough question. I think there's so many good teams, that are obviously going to go through to the next round. It's not going to be an easy run for France to get to the final or to win. But, they've got the most points out of any. They've played the most games, I guess, too, right now. But, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to repeat from my humble perspective.
Oh, come on.
They'll give the fans a good run, I think. But I don't think they win the whole thing.
No, David, you talked about the Italians a little bit, but let's expand upon them. They're always an enigma, aren't they? Like when they look bad, they tend to win. When they look good, they tend to lose. That's my experience with Italy over the years. I heard someone else articulate this the other day, that the Italians always do the best in major tournaments when you think they're going to do the worst. So far, the 2 wins, they haven't particularly been impressive for long stretches of those games, but yet results all that matters in these tournaments, right?
Yeah, well, and I had that exact conversation with an Italian friend at work the other day. He came in and he saw how well they looked, or how well they were playing, how good they looked on the pitch, and he said, I didn't think it was going to happen this year. I didn't think they were going to look like this. Meanwhile, a few years back, there's all of the expectation, and they choke. I was kind of surprised to even see that Buffon was still on the team and almost 40 years old and still performing so well. And I think they're quick. They look fast as well, as I mentioned with England too. They look pretty quick, but Italy on their counterattack, I noticed in the games I've watched, they've looked really dangerous. And when they can catch you off guard and get back going the other way, they've looked really good.
It's been a defensive tournament so far, with the most amount of goals scored by one team is 3 in Belgium's case in one game. Outside of that, there's a lot of 1-1, 2-1s. What's your thought on this defensive, very tactical tournament? And is there something that is really coming out for you that you can take on the pitch tournament-wide, that's tactically speaking?
I think that would have to probably be it, just how tight everybody's playing defensively. Again, when you look at the skill in any international soccer tournament, if you're not playing defense first, then you're probably going to get lit up, and it's going to be a real tough month for you if depending on how long you stay in the game.
No, but when you're looking at this tournament, we've seen great goals. There haven't been a lot of goals, but the goals that we have seen are probably, if not high class, very, very close to it. Would you think Payet, or maybe even who's your player of the tournament so far with the nicest goal?
Oh, I'm not sure if I've seen enough of the highlights, if I'm being honest. But
you got a direct Dyer free kick.
Oh, the Dyer free kick was nice too. Center of the goal almost for me. Yeah. It's kind of bobbled off, but the Payet in the opener.
First game, yeah.
Was it who had the volley? Was Croatia?
Yes, Luka Modric.
Modric. That one for me is. As soon as it happened, I said goal of the tournament. For sure. That one was nice.
David, let's turn the attention to today. I know that you and Kevin are going to attend this game. Not attend it, literally. You're not flying to France. As far as I know.
That.
Yeah, wish that would be the case.
We are at the airport, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you better hurry, guys. But at any rate, unless you have some kind of jet that...
the Concorde is not flying anymore, Duane? Oh, we got to take the Concorde.
I don't even think the Concorde to get you there in time unless it landed in the middle of the pitch. At any rate, England and Slovakia, you'll be at the pub watching that, enjoying some wings probably and maybe an adult beverage or two. But this game, I'm looking at it. England on 4 points. They are through, regardless of how these results scratch out. That's at least what we're telling me here. They're sort of a top 3 finish, pardon me. But a draw for these two teams would absolutely benefit both. Just as a draw yesterday would benefit both in that Switzerland-France game, and we kind of saw a boring kickabout in the middle of the pitch. I'm wondering whether this best 4th place finisher thing, as much as the Euro has been enhanced by having more teams in it, I think ultimately, I think the weakness of the new format is exactly this that you might expect kind of a dull game when both teams just need a point. Slovakia with 4 would almost certainly put them through. What are your thoughts on having the best 3rd place teams go through? Yeah,
I'd never really thought of that perspective, but I think I agree with that absolutely. I don't want to see that. I don't think any of the fans want to see that, and I think the teams have to kind of keep that in mind as well. If you're through, why not try to play a little bit more of an exciting game instead of being defensively sound and worrying about that. And these guys don't get the opportunity to play on this kind of stage very often either. So you got to hope that there's a little bit of want, I guess, in their minds to want to show off and strut their stuff a little bit. But at the same time, if the manager wants you to keep it tight because you can go through if you keep it tight, then maybe that's what we'll get. But hopefully it gets a little bit exciting and these guys play for some pride as well.
Yeah, I might be watching the other game a little. I think I might go watch a split screen somewhere because that Wales-Russia game is fascinating me too, because I think we'd all like to see the Russians out of this tournament, and I'm just going to put that out there. All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and we're going to talk a little Copa America.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
They should just play this song to the hooligans. I dare you to listen to that song and not be happy.
I dare you to listen to this and go try to punch somebody after.
Yeah. It's just, it's cheery. It's cheery.
You know one thing that's not cheery right now?
What's that?
It's this. The Mexican national team. Nobody's cheering right now with this song.
This is very, shouldn't talk over our national anthem, but yeah. What happened? I don't know where you even start with that. I mean, we're Canadian. We've been on the wrong side of that a couple times in our history here with the Canadian national team, and it's not fun to watch. But you don't expect it, just like you didn't expect it in the World Cup.
Yeah,
with Brazil, the 7-1 loss to Germany. You certainly didn't expect a 7-0 loss to Chile, who didn't look spectacular in the Copa America up to this. Whereas Mexico, we were talking in the lead up to this game, like they were almost guaranteed. It looked set, preordained for an Argentina-Mexico final. No, just no.
Here's an audio resume of the whole game, Duane.
Okay, let's listen to this.
There we go. So after this smack by Chile for Mexico, where does it leave this Mexico national team? Because we talked with Tom Marshall last week on this show, Duane, saying how Juan Carlos Osorio was doing such a great job as the Mexican national team head coach. He's probably going to get fired today.
Yeah, well, that's Mexico's way, and I don't know if I think that's a mistake. The first thought that I had, they're obviously in good condition for the final two games of the World Cup qualifying. They're pretty much assured of being through, but the fact they are assured of being through with 4 wins in the first, the concern from Canada's perspective on this one is whether they go into turmoil and suddenly that Honduras game in Mexico is no longer a sure thing for the Mexicans, because we're kind of reliant upon that in Canada in order to get through with the results. So look, Canada can, with 2 wins, they'd be through. So we shouldn't discount that, but
maybe it's going to force them to play really strong those 2 games in the World Cup qualifiers. So it
Yeah.
will help Canada, because Canada needs Mexico to get some results. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah. Sorry, to me, I mean, I don't know, like, I can't comprehend this game. And Dave, we'll bring you in here in a second here. Just in terms of like major upsets, like let's just look in a general sense. When you have like this kind of blowout, which this is the equivalent of a 50-0 football game, a 130-75 basketball game, like a 10-0 hockey game. Like, it's not something you comprehend, and you especially don't expect from an elite team at an elite tournament. David, how in any sport do you bounce back from that?
With a good stern talking to, typically from somebody, whether it's the coach, whether it's somebody in the lineup who's been on the team for a long time and is extremely embarrassed by what happened. Because you got to know those guys are probably pretty upset about what happened. And I mean, I think also with a team like Mexico, it's easy to bounce back from a loss like that because it doesn't happen so often. You go, okay, well, that was a one-off. Let's figure out why it happened and let's do what we do and get the job done. Whereas if you're a Canada and you're having lopsided losses like that all the time, it's like, oh, here we go again, and you don't get that confidence, right? Exactly. It sticks in your mind. So I think for a team with a history and a talent level like Mexico, they should be able to say, okay, let's remember who we are and let's go back out and do what we're capable of doing and not get embarrassed in that fashion.
Yeah. You gotta look, as I said, it's shocking in the sense that you don't often see sideways scores like that in major tournaments. And this is 2 major tournaments in a row where we have seen a sideways score. And I think that it might have something to do. My theory is that the fact that we had the 7-1 in the World Cup, the fact that we have the 7-0 right now might be a reflection of stylistically, tactically, how games are being played nowadays. They're so tight. They're so ordained in the sense that the tactics are so put forward. There's such a one style that they want to play these teams. They're so advanced that way that when the game plan falls through and the wheels start to go off, sometimes it gets out of control because there's less room for, I think, more of a natural kind of reaction to the game, because they're so set in the way and the game planning that they've had nowadays. There's been so much preparation that if the wheels come off, like I say, they can sometimes really come off.
Well, not just that, Duane. I think as well that result like 7-1 in Germany, Brazil in the World Cup 2 years ago, and this 7-0 results, for me, they're indication as well of teams that want to make statement, players that want to make statement, want to beat a team and not just by little, and not a lack of respect, but the lack of gentleman's agreement in today's sports world, in today's soccer world, I think is indicated by this score as well. A few years ago, many decades ago, after 3-4-0, there was an understanding that, look, let's not embarrass anybody here. We're all here to win money and to provide for our family. So let's do it respectively. Now it's all about performance, and I think it's representative of that as well, those scores.
Yeah, I've always questioned that in terms of whether that is respectful, and I've struggled with this. Years ago, I did coach the game for a little while, and the team I was coaching wasn't particularly very good. It was a overmatched team in terms of age and size of the school that I was working at, and we got into situations where teams were scoring goals left, right, and center on me, and I never quite grasped it, whether it was less respectful to stop trying or whether it was less respectful to keep scoring. You know what I mean?
Well, I have to agree with you. Having been on both situations as a player and as a coach, the only summer I coached soccer, undefeated, by the way, and I won the trophy that year. Don't want to, I just started my own one, but that's fine. When you're looking at the teams that I coached, we had many wins over 7 goals. And I was wondering, there was a mercy rule in that league. So games were finished. And that was the option. I was like, look, if the goal of the game is to win, why not win to the best way? And it's not disrespecting the other team. If you're not doing it in a disrespectful fashion, we're not laughing at them, pointing fingers. We're actually playing the game the way the game is supposed to be played, between whistles and correctly. And if the goal turned out to be 7-0, well, that's the scoreline. And that's the reflection of how this game happened, and not necessarily, just for respect. I'm not the most famous guy with trophies for participation. Look, it's a sport. It's on paper. There's a score. And because there's a score, there's a winner. If it's going to be that way, why not take advantage of it? So for me, it's more disrespectful if you're stopping playing the game and say, look, we're going to go down to their level. We're going to stoop to their level and stop playing a little bit. And I think the game needs to be respected by playing the game always at the best of your capabilities.
Yeah, I think we could draw a distinction between a true development, a kids league, where maybe things can be done on a coaching side to sort of flip your players around, put them in uncomfortable positions to try and develop them further when you're well up in a game, rather than just go for the throat. And you're still trying and you're still working on your game, but you're not necessarily only focused on embarrassing the overmatched opponent. But at a pro level, at an elite level, it becomes a different thing. David, I'll bring you into the conversation here. Is respect something that comes in at any point in these situations, or is that something at this level that we should just completely ignore?
It doesn't, not in a quarterfinal match. It doesn't. You're in an elimination game. I think you always go for the throat. If it's a situation like we were talking about today with England and Slovakia, where they both can go through, and you're both safe, then no, maybe you don't go that hard. But I think if you're in an elimination game and you're at that stage of the tournament, you have to keep, like Kevin said, not only respect the game and play at the best of your ability, but you have to keep your competitive edge up, and you have to bury them. I mean, look at international hockey tournaments as well, where goals for against counts and goals are more plentiful, and there's blowouts like this all the time in games that don't matter because of the excuse of goals for against, well, maybe, so no, I think in an elimination game, you bury them if you can, and you make a statement moving into the next round.
All right, fair enough. We only have 4 minutes left in this segment, and I do want to get into the USA Argentina, but really quickly, we have seen Brazil maybe struggle a little bit out of that 7-1, and it'll be interesting to watch to see if Mexico can continue to evolve and to grow from this, because they should truly look like they were becoming World Cup contenders. They are the defending Olympic champions. They do have a chance at a U23 level, albeit, but they do have a chance to quickly rebound and get this monkey off their back, and that might be something that benefits them long term. Let's talk about Argentina and their continued dominance in this tournament. They look unstoppable. The U.S., the red card appeal for Jermaine Jones and Bobby Wood just did not succeed, as it shouldn't have, because they were both legitimate cards. So they are shorthanded against what looks like a juggernaut. Any chance for the USA to beat Argentina? I'll start with you, Kevin.
No, I don't believe so. Upsets can happen. We have seen it. But in this Copa, Argentina's been building. Game to game, they've been playing better. Messi's on demand. And he's probably going to be used as a super sub again. So can you imagine? You're playing one of the best teams in the world. And about the 50th minute, the best player in the world comes on the pitch to be full of energy and trying to threaten Brad Guzan in net. So, it's going to be difficult for the USA. First of all, even their A lineup would have been difficult. And you mentioned all the red card and suspension. Let's just add the Josie Altidore injury. If you don't know, it's been 2 months now. Josie Altidore injured himself for TFC, so he wasn't going to be available for the Copa. And Klinsmann decided not to replace him position for position. And guess what? It might be the decision that actually cost US a goal, at least tonight, because they don't have a pure striker, or at least a pure striker, to help Dempsey in this position. So it's going to be interesting.
The ball is round, as they say, David. What kind of chance do you what do you think about the U.S. national team in a general term? Do you think they're amongst the elite, or do you think they're kind of one of those programs that can upset an elite occasionally, but you wouldn't quite call them elite yet?
I think with a fair amount of U.S. sports programs, they're not at the level that they purport themselves to be at. There's a lot of money, obviously, in sports in the States, and they can use that money in a lot of ways. And part of it is marketing and advertising and building up their teams. Obviously, yes, Team USA is a good soccer team, but they're not Argentina or Colombia. They're not. They don't have players, as Kevin says, like Messi. And if he gets on the field, like
nobody
does. Of course,
devil's advocate. Nobody has Messi, but yeah,
he's gonna go for a run around them. I think and Guzan in net is not the world class. On the scale of world class keepers, you got to go down the list until you hit Brad Guzan, right? So I don't like him if you're in a one-on-one situation, sort of thing. So
you just don't like Aston Villa.
They're all right, but yeah, it's I don't like their chances. I don't.
Okay, yeah, I don't think many people do. I wonder, is there such a thing as a moral victory at home? And I think with the U.S. program, if you're a discerning fan, you might be able to see a moral victory in a close loss. I think the U.S., with the attention that this program is having now, they're getting record numbers for U.S. broadcasts on Fox for this. I think that they would hope to go in and play solid and play a close loss even. But, I don't, like many people, I just can't comprehend how it works. But as they say, the ball is round, and, they believe that they will win. So, hey.
It would be amazing for U.S. soccer if it happened. Let's be honest.
Yeah. But it would be maybe amazing and brought up a red flag for me for other reason if the United States beat Argentina tonight in a bad fashion win.
All right, Kevin, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Major League. No, where are we at? We're going to talk about the Euro. Yes, there you go. Good segue, Duane.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS postgame show, Open Lines After Dark, 5 Rings Daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
I don't want to take too long on this, but I think I'd be remiss if I ignored what is probably the biggest sports story in the world right now, and that would be what happened last night in Oakland. Guys, what do you think of that basketball game, and what do you think of that performance by LeBron James over the last 3 games or so?
He had to make a statement, and he did. I don't think LeBron, I mean, there's always heat on LeBron James, and, for his attitude and because he is one of the best players in the world, but I haven't seen so much heat on him as I saw when they went down a few games early in this series. And what do the best players do when they're in that position? They put the team on their back and they go win the championship. So much talk about LeBron passing too much and not doing it himself. So he finally just said, I'm going to do it myself. And he did it.
In a soccer term, it's like if Ronaldo takes his team far in the Euro. It's probably not going to happen, but it would be that type of situation. If Ronaldo dominates the amount of touches, the amount of shot on target, and all those stats, that's what LeBron did. LeBron is the first player to dominate every single stat individually in a playoff for both teams. There's no doubt that he was going to be the MVP. He was going to be the MVP even if this team lost, probably. So, no, what LeBron James did is exceptional. I just feel bad for the Golden State Warriors. Just it reminds me of the Patriots winning perfect season and losing the Super Bowl. It's that kind of feeling.
Yeah, they're only much more likable than the Patriots. Leave that one alone.
Isn't it like everybody more likable than the Patriots?
The Russian hooligans might be more. All right, let's move past that. Kevin, you can tell that we've done like 500 podcasts together because you kind of set that up for a segue for me there by putting Ronaldo's name out there. We are going to talk about the weekend action in the Euros, and I guess we'll start with Portugal. And Ronaldo now the worst all-time record in terms of free kick takes in the Euro, 32 attempts, no goals.
Here's
what is it? Does that mean something? I don't know, Kevin.
When I see Ronaldo hitting a penalty lately, it's been like this.
Denied.
Because that's how it is. He just seemed to space out. And when he hit it, it's not just the penalty that he missed. It's the shot, probably his best chance of the match in the first half, maybe 20 minutes in. He was at the 8-yard line. Great feed by him. He just opens his left foot, and he's like 2 meters left, 2 meters wide. Something is... I don't know if it's the pressure, but I don't know. There's something off with Ronaldo where he feels maybe he needs to do too much. And if he doesn't succeed, he has that panic. Oh, what's going to happen? Who else is going to do it? And he just can't finish it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something about Ronaldo at the highest level. And this is a guy that's now won 2 of the last 3 Champions Leagues. Let's not ignore that. But it's just a little different to do it with Real Madrid than to carry Portugal on your back. And I think he feels a little bit of pressure, of burden with the Portuguese team, and he has been, a great warrior for them. I'm not the biggest Ronaldo fan, I'll admit. However, I can recognize that when it comes to Portugal, when it comes to putting that jersey on, that he does seem to take a great pride. And maybe, David, if I'll let you jump in after this, maybe he's just feeling the weight of that, and that might be contributing something to his inability to finish. Your thoughts, David?
Yeah, that would make a whole lot of sense. At the same time, we look at, again, just back to LeBron James and the great players and being able to put the team on their back. And as hard as it can be, when you're in that position, you have to do it. I mean, nobody, and including Cristiano Ronaldo, I think, expected him to miss that penalty on the weekend, right? But he did, and that is, probably he's obviously in his own head, right? Like he could close his eyes and score that penalty kick and, any day of the week. And why this time, did it not work for him? And he's obviously overthinking things, even though
there's a look of disbelief. There's a look of disbelief too when he is missing that penalty in his face when the ball goes off the post, and he's like not even running after the ball. He's like just there, blank stare, looking at it like, did I really miss a penalty on the Euro level? Really? There's no reaction, no running after the ball, which you usually do when you miss a penalty. So, yeah, there's something going on there.
Yeah. The lucky thing for Portugal is on 2 points with the who do they have final up? They're up against Hungary in their final game. Hungary with 4 points, virtually assured of going through as one of the best third place finishers at the very least, although they'd like to win the group. They might rotate a bit, though, is what I'm sort of getting out of that. They still are fairly well set up to make a knockout round. And this is the thing about this tournament, in any tournament, is once you hit the knockout round, all bets are off. One upset here or there, you never know. The bracket's open, and if you win, you go through. And then we saw it with Greece in 2004.
Hungary could be a danger for Portugal, Duane. Hungary have scored goals when it mattered. On Portugal, I can see it happen.
Well, let's talk about Hungary for a bit. They have been the surprise of the tournament. I famously ranked them the worst team in the tournament, and I stand by my pre-tournament ranking of that. They look like the worst team in the tournament. However, they have not looked like the worst team in the tournament by any measure in this. David, off the top, you talked about the minnows, and you mentioned Iceland, and everyone likes Iceland, but Iceland was kind of dominated in that second half of that game against Hungary, and that goal to tie it up late was well deserved. What have your thoughts on Hungary been?
They've been hungry. Like they've been after it for sure. I'm again, like everybody else, is surprised to see them at the top of the group at this stage, and I think they've played well enough over their first two games that they could maybe put one by Portugal, especially if they're in their own heads as much as they seem to be at this point. I think everybody, loves a small country coming in and doing something cool. Their fans have been incredible. Did you guys see the video of the Hungary fans in the street? Unbelievable, right? And that is how you travel in numbers and support your team, right? That was unbelievable. And it's that kind of support that can push a small club like that, not the rioting and the hooliganism and that sort of thing. So they've been impressive. I think, as you say, not the best team in the tournament, perhaps the worst, but they've looked okay over two games for sure.
Yeah, all right. Let's move to Kevin's favorite topic, and that's the Belgians. I think Kevin, if you had to put a gun to his head, would pick Belgium over France in this tournament, but I'm not going to force him to make that call.
Depends. Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't force me.
A rebound game. It was against Ireland, and God love the Irish. They have great fans. There was a video I posted this morning of them singing a lullaby to a baby on the train. So, and that's beautiful. It is. But in terms of what they're doing on the pitch, I'm not too sure whether that 3-0 win by the Belgians was necessarily that reflective. However, it did put them back into the driving seat. They simply do need to get a win against the Sweden team that has yet to get a shot on goal. Zlatan's age is really showing in this tournament. What were your thoughts on the Belgian performance on the weekend, Kevin?
Well, great performance. We've seen a transition in that game too. What was interesting, and it was mentioned by Jason DeVos in the broadcast on TSN, but it was apparent as well watching the game, the gestures and demeanors of players towards Lukaku for the first 50 minutes. They were looking at him, dude, go run, make that run. What are you doing? Come on, go. All like missed opportunities in their mind. And eventually they decided, you know what? It's our job as servicemen to put him in a position where he doesn't need to think too much and just needs to hit the ball, because that's where Lukaku is effective. Don't give him the ball 20 yards away and have him think about what he's going to do and how he's going to pass the defender. No, put him in a position, give him the ball where he only has one option: head the ball home or kick it in the net. And that's what they decided to do. Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard decided to collectively service Lukaku in a way where he just needs to open his foot or open his hips, and bang, it's a goal. And that's what happened to this game. And once that happened, Belgium was able to take the space that Lukaku was creating by being a threat, which he wasn't in the first 50 minutes and the first game of this tournament as well.
Lukaku is like many strikers in the world that you don't want to make them think too much sometimes. It's such an instinctive position in terms of that ability to put the ball in the goal. And any of us who have played sports at any level sort of understands that if you overthink things, when you get into a goal-scoring opportunity, it tends to not go well for you. So I think that was probably the right choice for them. And a player like De Bruyne has been, and I'm obviously biased towards him, but he's been brilliant in the tournament and setting him up. And it's those talismans in the middle of the field that always grab your attention the most, but you do ultimately need someone to put the ball in the net. And that has been Lukaku in this tournament. And I really am frustrated by that, because I had him in my World Cup fantasy draft and he did nothing in the World Cup. So there you go.
Exactly. But for Belgium, like you mentioned, they're back in the driver's seat, but still, it's not necessarily an easy job. They have to get a result. So it's not necessarily easy. There has been a lot of changes, and hopefully they'll be able to get the final touch, final line, the starting lineup, like we have seen French for 3 games juggling the lineup and still haven't found that chemistry yet.
All right. Couple minutes left here. Let's talk about yesterday's games. The France-Switzerland game, as I mentioned in the first segment, was dull, terrible. It reminds me of some bad results in the past where teams sort of were complacent and played for a draw for each other. I'm not sure whether that exactly was happening, but certainly as the game got deeper and the two teams sort of realized that the through, they kind of sat back and played conservatively, we'll say. Not complacent, but conservatively. I have not been impressed with Switzerland at all in this tournament.
No.
Nothing that they did the other day, nothing they've done in this group, which, let's face it, when you look at Albania and Romania played well, but they obviously were the weakest side there.
Yeah. Outside of the quality of the Switzerland jerseys, Duane, which the whole day you just see being shredded like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not even because of hard like fist grabs on the jersey or tugs or nothing. Just it gets caught in the air or the ball gets deflated. Like, when did you see that happen? It was a weird game.
I was going to say the balls get deflated. We're going to have the other Patriot reference here.
Yeah, like no, literally, just the Romanian defender just extended his foot and the ball like crazy.
What do you do if you're Albania, David? I wonder what you think here. What do you do? You have 3 points. You don't know whether you're going through. You have 4 more days to sit around. Like how do you approach training? How do you keep motivated when you don't know if you're going home or not? It's a weird part of the quirk to this format.
Yeah, you might have to refresh me completely on this. Is it in their own hands?
No, they're done completely. They're just sitting around waiting to see how the results play out. It's weird in a tournament that there's third place finishers going through. So
to explain it, it's like in the Women's World Cup in Canada. And the Olympic tournament, the 4 best third move on to the other level. So you have a situation where you have 3 points. You need to know all the team have managed the tournament and see their point total to see if you are one of the best third. You could be, but you're probably not going to be with 3 points. And how do you manage this weight in 4 days? Do you train the same? Do you have the same mentality looking forward to the games? Or you're just wondering, am I going home? What's going to happen? I want to see my kids. What's the mindset in your opinion?
I think any time that you have a chance that you might be playing again, especially in an elimination game, then you have to keep that mindset until you know that it's not going to happen, right? So, yeah, that can be hard, but at the same time, you should relish the opportunity to be at a tournament like this away with your national team. And I think your family would probably understand the circumstances. So, you train like you've been training. You train like you're going to be playing, and then you deal with the upset of not going through, when the cards fall that way. You can't. It's the same with putting the pedal down in an elimination game, knowing there's another elimination game coming. You have to keep that mindset that that you're going to be competitive and that you can win.
All right, David, one final question in this segment. England today, there is a strong suggestion that Wayne Rooney has been left out of the squad. What are your thoughts on Rooney? Is he done with England after this tournament? Do you think that it's a good decision to move away from him, even if it is maybe a rotation thing right now?
Yeah, I mean, and as a Manchester United guy, I'm obviously a big Rooney guy, but I do think that it's probably time to give some of the other younger lads a shot. As you guys know, you're always building on like a 2 or 4 year cycle sort of thing for these international tournaments, and Rooney is not the same player that he used to be. While he still is one of the tops in the world, I like the idea to kind of just shift him off of the front line and just use him in space somewhere else. But yeah, get the younger guys some reps, the guys who are running through the Premier League, like the Jamie Vardys and Daniel Sturridge and everybody else. I think it's good to give those guys a shot for sure.
All right, that's it for Euro for the day. We're going to come back and end the show with a little Major League Soccer talk. If you're looking for the Canadian review, that will be on Two Solitudes, which again will be released tomorrow along with Canadian Women Talk. But let's take a break, come back, and have some general Major League Soccer discussion.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
It's powered by Diet Pepsi in my case.
And a lot of coffee in my case.
There you go. Yeah, I'm healthy. I don't drink coffee. I just drink gallons of Diet Cola.
It's a lot better, right?
Oh yeah, it's better for you. There's
exactly.
lots of research out there that says that it's health drinks. It's health. It's a health choice.
Well, there's
Healthy
no sugar,
living.
right?
That
There's no sugar.
aspartame's good stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
There's no sugar, aspartame. It's all good for you.
Yeah, I think it makes me think good.
It makes you good think. Yes.
Good think I. All right. Let's talk about Major League Soccer. We have to talk about refereeing again because good God, it's Major League Soccer and it's been a nice little break. Kevin, you were actually saying this to me off air earlier in the tournament, the Euro tournament. It's like it's been refreshing to watch a tournament where you're not moaning about the referees every game. But
guess what? MLS is back.
Welcome back, Major League Soccer.
Welcome
There was an
back.
absolute own goal scored in the SKC Dallas game yesterday. There's a hilarious vines and everything else there. Someone's like redrawn the goal line to go around the ball, which is clearly like 3 yards inside the goal.
Yeah.
Kevin, are you sick of talking about pro? And is there any obvious solution about this?
Goal line technology. I think that's inevitable. But, more than that, well, it's actually coming next year. MLS is part of the FIFA experiment starting next year to be one of the first leagues in the world to have goal line technology outside of England. So that's going to be a topic that's going to be non-issue starting next year. But the refereeing, it's what is there to do? Do you have to do the video replay to counteract the decision of referees because they're so off? What is there to do? That's the question. Do you have to go with them and just train them better and go in Europe and have stints with other referees, or just literally we buy DP players and spend a lot of money for it? Go get a maybe not Mark Clattenburg if you're a United fan, sorry, David, but go get a Howard Webb. Go get somebody to bring them to MLS and just raise the standard a little.
All right, David, Kevin and I had the discussion last week about video replay in soccer. And I, as I get older, increasingly become less inclined to advocate for video. When I was a younger man, I absolutely wanted it for all situations. And now that I've seen it play out in baseball and basketball and hockey, where you have these long delays sometimes and they don't solve anything, I'm less inclined to it. But I'm wondering what your thoughts on the potential bringing video into to soccer are.
I'm okay with it. I'm always a fan of getting the call right. I'm umpired baseball for 15 years, and I even am okay with video replay in baseball. I don't obviously like the time that it takes up and that sort of thing, but when you've got a borderline call, I think it's always best to get the call right. And in soccer, if you're using it, let's say for goals and offsides, those are rather cut and dry, although you could take a long look at an offside. So I don't think the delay would be there as much. And then you can just tack it on an injury time at the end of the half anyway. So I'm always, first of all, a fan of getting the call right. Second of all, when it comes to what to do about officials, there's only two things you can do. You can either train them, or you can use the video to make sure that they're getting the calls right, or that the call is made right. And that's exactly what you do. You get the best officials. You get the ones who are officiating in the World Cups and in the Euros to go to the clinics and to teach these younger referees. I mean, I imagine it's what's being done at the grassroots level, but it needs to come from the best in the world down and filter through. And I don't know if there's enough of a focus on getting that help. I don't know as much about the officials organizations either, but to me, those are the only two things you can do. And I think the training is the better option, but if not, video replay also works.
Yeah, I think with pro referees, which is their association, it's only really been around for 5 or 6 years now, and they went to the move to try and go fully professional at that point, and we're slowly seeing some evolution, some improvement in the officials. And I think that's really what it is we're impatient because we watch world-class leagues, and MLS is an evolving league, and the referees are evolving at the same level as the players in many ways. Some would argue they're a little behind, but that might be because they didn't go fully professional until recently. So we have to give it time, but that's hard to do. To me, you got to get goals right, and the way to get goals right, video replay and goal line technology are options in terms of the ball crossing the line or not. That doesn't help you with handball calls and stuff like that are close to the goal. I like the idea of just simply having another referee on the goal line like we're seeing in the Euro. That takes less time, and surely to God, if you have a guy on the goal line, they're going to notice if the ball crosses it by 4 yards, right? Anyway.
Yeah, well, you would think so, yeah.
You would hope, yeah, if you're qualified to be out there. Look, let's talk a little bit about a rumor that came out today. Sampdoria, the Italian Serie A team, Michael Bradley, TFC's Michael Bradley, has been linked to a move back to this club. I'm wondering whether, first off, it's silly season, and God knows whether these rumors have any legs or not, but it's worth bringing up because Michael Bradley's been a player that's so key and such a big part of the marketing here in Toronto that you'd have to wonder whether this is something that TFC could survive. David, do you think the TFC could survive the loss of David Bradley?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be the first time that a marquee player jumped ship to go back to Europe from TFC, right?
Germany default.
But yeah, I've given the money in the organization, if they can find, somebody to fill the hole, you would probably have a better idea as far as who they were looking at. I think anytime the team has money, then, the hole can be filled. And the same with marketing. I think they have enough other guys right now with Javinko or any of the hometown lads that they've got on the squad that they could just kind of stick in there and be like, here's our new face, as MLS and E tends to do with, their other teams. So from a marketing standpoint, I don't think it'd be tough to fill. And, as long as there's somebody else of that caliber that's willing to come, and, more and more, it seems like there are high caliber players willing to come to MLS, I think they could replace him.
All right. With the caveat, I'll ask you, Kevin, with the caveat that I think this report is bunk, what are your thoughts on the potential of Michael Bradley leaving TFC?
I think it's unfair to say. I don't think Michael Bradley will leave MLS anytime soon. If he leaves TFC, I'm sure there's another American team in MLS that will do whatever it takes to bring the captain home, because that's the perception that he does have in the States. The only caveat to that would be if, example, Bradley, the coach, his father, I forgot his name, Bob Bradley. If Bob Bradley was to become a coach of a Serie A team or coach of a top league in the world, and there was a possibility of bringing Michael Bradley to this team, then it would be something. But I think you're right. This report is bonkers. But not just that. I think that Bradley is a big shining light for MLS. And for MLS, for some especially, it's a player that you need to have in their league. So they'll do whatever it takes, if there's any truth for him leaving, to keep him in the league for sure.
Yeah, look, and my final thoughts on this, as I said, I do think it's bunk, but it's potential that they've reached out to TFC, and maybe that's where the rumor's coming from. There's a lot of reaching out that happens across the world in like this, that sometimes if the agent or the club wants to be seen as doing so, the agents often get the rumors started because they want to increase the value of their player. It stands to reason. It's all kind of whatever. We understand what's going on. The teams sometimes leak information, like Sampdoria here in this case, because maybe they want their club, their fans, to think that they're out there trying to improve the team when maybe they don't have the money to do so. So, we tried. They wouldn't sell,
Hey, we're trying to get Messi, but he didn't want to come.
Yeah, so that stuff happens there. But in terms of Bradley, look, there's no indication that he's unhappy in Toronto. He seems to be playing his best soccer of his return right now. Found a role finally, settled into the back of the six. TFC did struggle a little bit in the last little while before he left, and seemed to be doing okay now with the win over LA on the weekend, which was a hell of a good game to watch, I'll tell you that. But I'd be surprised if this came to fruition. He makes a lot of money, and a lot more money with TFC than he would with pretty much any other club in the world. You mentioned that there might be some American teams interested in repatriating him. I'm sure there would, but I don't know how many would be willing to pay $5 million for him, because not every MLS team has MLSE's money.
Or not any team in the world have that vision of Bradley, maybe too. So yeah, you're right. He's probably making, for him, he's probably getting the most amount of value for himself.
My final talking point of the day was I did want to make note of what happened in Orlando. Not necessarily the tragedy itself, but the way that they honored it, the Orlando City, in the weekend. They actually stopped the game dead for about 30 seconds to have a moment of silence.
For 49 seconds to be precise.
Was it 49 seconds? Okay,
was it 49 seconds? And 40 at the 49th minute, with 49 balloons forming a rainbow in the stands to represent the 49th victim of this god-awful thing that happened at the nightclub a few weeks ago. The Michael Bradley gesture, well, the U.S. men's national team gesture of the rainbow captain's armband, I think should be replicated, and I kind of want to see that armband against Mexico.
Well, yeah,
for many different reasons.
Yeah, well, we understand Mexico's now out, of course, so we can't get that in this tournament anymore. I did actually wish the Mexican fans a happy Pride when they lost 7-0. So
there you go.
Look, I mean, this is a very unfortunate, and I'm trying to use the right terminology here because obviously it was terrible. So it was a very dramatic, like unusual situation here. This is above and beyond what happened, is what I'm trying to say.
And in a small city like Orlando, Duane, it's not a big city. It's a tight-knit community. And where it happens, it's close to the Full Sail University in downtown Orlando, close to a lot of facilities with a lot of young people, a lot of young, bright minds of the future that are either listening or living there or working there. And it's such a disaster. It's such an act. There's no way to describe it. And it's a shame because it touched the heart. Not the way it happened, it actually gave the city a bad vibe. And in a city that's built on happiness, or at least the perception of it, like Orlando, it just hits close to home, and it's just a shame. I have family that goes to Orlando for 5 months a year, and it could have been. It's a shame, and we all have people that live in this part of the world that go there pretty often, and it's there's just no words to describe, Duane. It's just I don't know what to say.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it was such an over-the-top thing that happened that I'm not going to criticize them for this. I do sometimes wonder whether sports they play this too much and almost play it cynically. Issues like this. I mean, I think of the military tributes that are constant in games and things like that. So you got to be careful not to overplay. But I thought that across the league, they struck the right balance. It was very delicately done, very non-cynically done, as it should be. So bravo to them. There's some great tifos out there. If you want to go to Reddit and all those normal places, you can find links to it. FC Cincinnati, their fans put a rainbow tifo out there. There was one in the 49th minute in the Sporting Kansas City game. Lots of good stuff. Even TFC had some flags and stuff like that in the crowd. So most places recognized it as it should be recognized. Dave, we haven't had you in this conversation. I just don't know whether there's an opinion to be had here. But if you'd like to add something, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think this, if you just look at why this was such a widespread thing, it obviously the sheer size of what happened, and also the amount of touchy issues that it kind of sets off. You've got the gay rights thing, you've got the guns thing, you've got the Islamophobia and terrorism thing. So I think to see all of these different teams kind of band together in solidarity is a nice positive sign for the world at a time like this. I think you talk about the cynicism of sports highlighting these sort of things and going a little bit over the top with it, but I think if there's one real beauty of sports, it's that it is the distraction from real life, and it is kind of its own world, and we can use it in a positive way to kind of focus efforts and attention somewhere else and back on the things that we love.
Quickly to end the show, we will have a full Canadian review, but I'm just wondering what your take on the 0-0 draw was.
Well, not really a lot of things you can take out. For once, Montreal kept the clean sheet. The clean sheet especially. They kept it. It was a good defensive performance for a team that's missing their best defender, Laurent Simon, on the bench for Belgium and Euro. So for them, it's important to have a great defensive performance. Now they're missing Piatti as well on the offensive side. Ontivero, I thought, did a good job. Maybe he missed audition, or he didn't grab the brass ring. Let's just put it that way for Johan Venegas, coming out of a great performance at the Copa, not able to replicate this, at least in his first game back with the Montreal Impact. 0-0, Drogba was battling all game long, but he was facing a Columbus Crew defense that was 2-3 timing him. So it was hard for him to get the space, and nobody was able to use the space created because, well, Piatti wasn't there. So we're missing Nacho a lot. But outside of that, Montreal defensively played a great game, and defensively in the midfield, Alexander Becker performed well. And I think Becker, for the first time in his career, he's one of the starting 11. He's one of the chosen player every time game time comes. There's a stability with the impact in that position. It's a shame for other players like Bernier, but Bernier is getting a shot maybe higher up on the pitch. So for Becker, it's a very positive season where maybe he have finally found in an MLS starting lineup.
Let's hope so. I haven't had a chance to rewatch TFC LA yet. I will just say this quickly: the atmosphere in that building when it's full right now is incredible. It's nice to see BMO Field feel like it did for that period in the early years again, with more numbers in there now. So that was nice to see. And Vancouver losing to New England, as I said, I'll have more comments on that on the Canadian Review on Two Solitudes tomorrow. I believe you have Hardwood Radio coming up tomorrow as well, Kevin. Why don't you throw or promote a few things happening on the network and say goodbye for us?
Absolutely. Well, today as well, What's the Score? The sports news quiz that's coming out in a few minutes after the broadcast of this show, as much as a Two Upfront Soccer Show special they did a week and a half ago, a Milwaukee Torrent special edition. You will have this on the network this week, Hardwood Radio, the NSL Nightcap. You will have as well a plethora of other shows this week on the Sports Podcast Network. And until next time, for David Foote, Duane Rollins, I am Kevin Laramee, and have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.